Hello everyone, welcome to ChessVisor, your wise choice to improve your chess. In today's video, I'm going to show you a game played between Yannick Pelletier from Switzerland and Praggnanandhaa R from India. And this game was played in 44th Chess Olympiad round number 3. And it was quite a disappointing game for Praggnanandhaa. Let's check what happened or what really happened in the game. So before we begin this video, if you are watching this channel for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel and press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. So here it was third round of the chess Olympiad. It's a team event, right? So you have to perform well in order to support your team. And the team 3 of or team 2 from India, it's very strong, consisting of Raunak Sadhwani, Praggnanandhaa Gugesh and Nihal Sarin. So and I think Adiban Bhaskaran. But what really happened in the third round is quite a disappointing for not only for Praggnanandhaa but for entire team India. It's because the game had multiple twists and turns. So let's check each one of them now. So here Yannick Pelletier was handling white pieces, so he opens the game with 1 d4. And here Praggnanandhaa goes for this knight f6 c4 idea, e6, knight f3 d5, knight c3, d takes c4, e4, b5. So Pelletier plays e5, kicking the knight, and the knight goes to the center of the board, knight d5. So knight takes b5, knight b6, and now bishop to e2. So from the opening itself, it looks like Prag has some problem on the queen side. Say for example, now we have the double pawn on the c file, and because of this double pawn, we left our a pawn as an isolated pawn. So it is not a good idea to have such an imbalance from the starting position of a game against a strong grandmaster like Yannick Pelletier. So here after bishop e2, he plays the move knight c6, castles, bishop e7, getting ready to the castle. But here Pelletier plays the move queen to d2, and here instead of castling on the king side, actually castling on the king side is okay to play the move, but he didn't play that. Rather he played the move queen to d7, hinting or delaying the castling and hinting something different, maybe castling on the queen side later. So he plays knight c3, queen to bishop b7, rook to d1, knight to b4. So what's the point of playing knight b4? It's simply maybe to occupy this square with one of this knight, and even if you capture, the other knight will occupy the same square. Okay, so after this move he played queen f4. In this position after queen f4, it is better to drop the knight back to this center of the board, uh, that is d5, right? But in the game Prag played this f5, which is not expected because it's kind of weakening your king side, and it is hinting that he is not going to castle on the king side anymore, right? With the pawn f5, now Pelletier has the option to do the en passant, so he does the en passant here. He takes f6, and here we cannot take back with the bishop because knight e4 is coming. So sorry, knight e5 is coming to hit the queen, and the queen has to move again. So he plays the move g takes f6, and now if you look at this position carefully, already white is kind of better here. Uh, Including white is already better because he is the one who started the game first, and not only that, along with that, small advantage has been added to his opening value. Because if you look at this position, already I was talking about this double pawn and this isolated pawn, and now you see that there is a hanging pawn situation in the center, and also one isolated pawn on the king side. So very difficult position for black. It's just the 14th move of the game. And here after a queen h6, Prag castles on the queen side. That is the right way to continue the game, because you cannot, or your king won't be safer in the king side, right? So that's why he castles on the queen side. So bishop f4, developing move and putting pressure on the c7. Knight to d3, going into the position. Bishop to g3, because you don't want to capture this knight, right? After c takes d3, maybe you can capture here, but the problem is we have pawn to e5, your rook is kind of hanging. So all in all, this position would be it is playable for black. It's also playable. He simply saves the bishop here with bishop g3. So knight takes b2, rook d c1. It is not recommended to capture this pawn because it opens the line against your king, but still Prag goes for that. So and after knight takes b2, he plays the move rook d c1. Now if you look at this position, this e2 bishop is putting pressure on c4, and g3 bishop is putting pressure on the c7. Along with that, this rook is also joining the same thing, and white will try to increase the pressure along the c file with more pieces. So let's see what happens. Knight to a4, and after rook a b1, now he exchanges the knight. So knight takes c3, rook takes c3, and now comes queen to c6 to defend them, c4 further. And after bishop f1, we have rook to d7, and now he plays the move queen c1. And if you can see, uh, this is a very unpleasant position for black now, so he has to be very careful here. So he plays the move bishop a6 to trying to defend one more time, and after this move he played the move a4. So here Prag simply lifts the rook to stop a5 idea, but you could have gone knight takes a4, rook c2, c3, but it's very risky. It looks risky, so he plays the move rook to d5. And in this position, white plays the move rook back to c2, but instead of that move he could have played a queen e1. That will simply put pressure on the e6 pawn. Not only that, it x-rays the bishop which sits on e6 e7 square. Maybe this variation could have been better for white, maybe like knight takes a4, rook takes c4. But I'm going to show you an interesting variation where even white checkmates black. So after bishop takes c4, bishop takes c4, we have rook h5. Because the rook is kind of trapped, you cannot save the rook. If you want to save the rook, you have to give up the king now, because after queen takes e6 check, we have queen takes e6 followed by bishop takes e6 check, king d8, rook b8 checkmate. So interesting position for white. Yeah. So rook d5, rook c2. I was mentioning earlier that at the move of 14, white gained some of the advantages in the position. So the advantages, it is keep coming throughout the game. So after rook c2, he plays the move rook h d8, and knight to d2, rook takes d4, a5, attacking the rook, knight goes to a4, and now it's actually a blunder here. It's because you have to take this knight here. Okay, after rook takes d2, rook takes d2, then a takes b6. So there is no time to capture the pawn back. So your rook is hanging. So you have to play moves like maybe rook to a2. But still, it looks risky because your king is kind of wide open, and white is ready to attack. So here he plays the move knight a4, knight takes c4, bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, and after all the transaction, white is clearly better in this position. So knight to c5, bishop e2, going back, bishop d6, so queen to b2, a6, and now comes queen takes f6. And yeah, so all the pawns are now is an isolated pawns. That means you have to dedicate each piece, or each one of the pieces to defend the pawns. It's very difficult to do that when you have multiple isolated pawns. So that means black is completely lost here. So it's a complete winning position for white, but yeah, let's see what happens. So here after queen takes f6, instead of that, you could have gone bishop takes d6 also, because this ending is clearly winning for uh, black here, sorry, white here. So rook takes d6 allows rook b8 check, sorry, queen b8 check, king d7, bishop h5, threatening mate in 1, king e7, so avoiding the mate. So queen h8, again threatening mate, because you have to lift the rook up. Otherwise, if you play any random move such as knight e4, just a random move to explain the uh, problem in the position for black. So queen g7 followed by king d8, and then rook b8 checkmate. So in the game, he didn't go bishop d6, I mean bishop takes d6, rather he played the move queen f6. So queen f6, and then rook f8 attacking the queen, and now queen goes back to b2. And after knight a4 attacking the queen, and now the queen comes to b3. So after this, knight c5 again attacking the queen, queen e3, king d7, getting out of the back rank issues. It's not a back rank issue, but you prophylaxis move the king to the d7, maybe to defend this pawn, maybe. Yeah. So bishop f3, attacking the queen, queen a4, queen c3, and after rook f7, he goes rook a1, attacking the queen. But instead of that, he could have immediately gone rook b8, gaining the back rank, and it's a dead position for black again. Bishop takes g3, h takes g3. We have knight e4, queen h8, threatening mate, and also threatening to win queen. So it's a lost position. But in the game, he played the move rook a1. Still, white is way better than black. He could still win the game. So queen b3, queen d4. With the queen d3, they reached the time control with the queen h8. It's a 40th move of the game. So knight e4. He plays knight e4, and after bishop takes d6. In this position, instead of taking the bishop now, he could have gone bishop h5. So it gains time on the rook, and after rook f8, you are dropping the rook, but still we have the move queen takes h7 check, and after king to c8, we have bishop takes d6. So now your one of the pieces hanging, you cannot take back with the queen. If you take back with the queen, your knight is hanging. If you take back with the knight, then your queen is hanging. So that means you are lost. So here in this position, he played bishop takes d6 instead of bishop h5. So after knight takes d6, again we have the move rook to d1, kind of pitting the knight and irritating black, but he played queen a8. This kind of now equalizes the game now. So earlier, when I started the game after 14th or 15th move, black was completely losing the game. The advantages for white is keep increasing edge by edge, but now all the advantage has been neutralized with this queen a8. It's because you should keep the pressure in the position, but he played a queen a8, which allows Prag to play the move queen c3, gaining some time on the rook. So rook to d1, queen takes a5, h3, just creating some breathing square for the king. King e7, getting out of the pin. Rook to c1, threatening the pawn. It's not actually a threat, but the queen should not be an ideal defender for a pawn, right? So king d7 again, bishop c6 check, king e7, bishop f3 going back, and now here kind of Prag repeats the move, but after queen c6 check, he breaks the repetition. So king to d8, bishop g4, rook e7, and after rook b1. In this position, or at this point of time in the game, they were having tremendous time pressure. So yeah, so there were a lot of mistakes after this 50th move. So rook e8, rook b8 check, rook takes king e7, rook takes e8 check, and then knight takes e8, queen takes e6 check, and after king f8, queen h6 check, and now white is completely crushing black, and easy winning for white. So knight g7 blocking the check, queen f6 check, king g8, and now comes bishop to f3. So rerouting the bishop to the light square to give the check along the light squares to force the king to the corner. So queen b5, and now we have the move queen e7, and now comes queen b1 check. And after this, king h2. Black now has to be very very careful, because you have back rank issues also in some variations after bishop check. So he covers the back rank, so queen b8, but now comes bishop d5 check. That forces the king into the corner, king h8. But now comes, or now he played the move queen e5. Rather than this move, he could have gone g3 to avoid any discoveries on the king, and then followed by this move, so pawn to h4 h5. So he can put the queen on f6 to pin the knight to the king, and he can simply win the game. But in the game he played queen e5. Okay, that's fine, no problem. But here Prag started pushing the passer here, a5. But now comes bishop f7. I want to show you this specific variation with the g3 idea. So g3, let's say I push the pawn to a5, and now comes queen f6, pinning the knight, and I'm going to win the knight with a h4 h5 and then h6 h7. So after a4, I can simply push the pawn and win the game. But in the game, he played queen e5. That allows Prag to push the pawn. Bishop f7 now, queen b6, pawn to f4. So queen d6, queen e4, c6, bishop to b3, queen b4, queen e3, a4, bishop c2, and now you believe it or not, the game is equal now. So White should have won the game because of time pressure and all. He missed a few good moves in the ending. But after a3, queen d3, and after queen takes f4 check, you believe it or not, the game is lost for White on time. Do you believe this? It's unbelievable result actually, and Praggnanandhaa was not happy at all about this game, and in fact, it was very upsetting for Yannick Pelletier, because he could have won the game very easily by playing g3 followed by pinning the knight and pushing the pawn forward, but he missed all the ideas with the time pressure. So definitely it's a good lesson for all of us, because in chess it's all about time. You have to manage the time. So it's not a very good feeling when you lose the game when you are completely winning. At least you could have drawn the game, right? So it's a team event. You could have added value to your team, but the problem is he lost on time. Anyway, that's it for the day. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up in case if you're watching this channel for the first time, and thank you so much for watching this channel. And please consider subscribing to the channel and press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. As usual, this is Chess Wiser, your wise choice to improve your chess.